Jai Guru, everyone.
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.
Welcome to Minute 9, Awake, Minute by Minute podcast. I'm hosting this week, Chris, and with me is Priyank and Mike. Hello, guys. Priyank, how are you today? How was your meditation this morning?
I'm very good. Meditation was good. I've started this thing where I recite the Gita, and do a short meditation online. So I've set this up for that, much to the dismay of my wife. But
you'll need to describe it for the folks listening.
Follow us. Yeah, we just, because the Gita obviously is a powerful thing, and I do it every day. So someone was asking me, why don't you just live stream it? So if you want to take part of that, go to Yogananda London on Facebook or Instagram, and you can see those.
Very good. Mike, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. My meditation was a bit short. I had like a friend coming over early, and with some croissants, so it was cut short a little bit. But other than that, good day so far. Good day. Yeah.
Play some meditation with croissants, it's pretty close sometimes. It better have been a good croissant, I suppose.
Sorry, I misspoke. I meant go to Yogananda Friends. Sorry.
Yogananda Friends for Priyank.
Instagram, yeah, Gita stuff. Yes.
Epic. Yeah, you're a proper digital. You have a digital presence now, Priyank. You're doing podcast, digital readings.
For my sins, and probably not to the joy of the world.
Yeah, well, I'll say my meditation this morning to join you, Mike, didn't happen either. So I meditated at 12 o'clock today for a good 30 minutes after I did my reading, which was really nice. I find though, if I don't get up and do the meditation in the morning, it is a lot more difficult to slow the day down to kind of get into it. But no, that's good just to get it done. So yeah, this minute is minute 9. So last minute we covered the brotherhood of man and what it means to be a guru and yogic powers. So that was quite fun. So this minute we can jump straight into, and we have a scene that is becoming familiar. It's the trains. So we have another train scene. I think this is actually the third time that we've seen trains being included in the film so far. So yeah, I wonder how many more times it's going to come up. And I'm sure there is a meaning to this somehow and somewhere that we could probably pull out, and maybe we should. But I'll look at the first few seconds before we'll pause and go back to this. So we have the train scene and the noises of the train and going past on the rails. You'll see the people of India sitting with their garms and cooking on the side and running to try to catch the train. And you hear the noise and the running of the feet. And immediately when I'm watching this, I'm transported to India again. I'm just wondering, is this what it's like? All the kind of chaos and the noise, and I imagine it is so. But for those who have actually been there, Priyank, what's your reaction to this, the initial few seconds of this scene?
Yeah, I thought it's a good idea. It's a good concept that they've picked to focus on different elements of the the Indian railway train experience, because in that experience, when you take a train, whether it's first class or sleeper or regular or whatever class, it's like a mini experience of India in one little part of life there, because everything's there. Like, for example, the chaos of markets and finding your seats, and then there's little elements of bribery that, if you want a better seat or a sleeper carriage, just forget which ticket you have, just give the guy a few notes and he will upgrade you and degrade someone else. And then the much discussed toilets in India. similarly, trains in India have that same same vibe. People hanging out at the door, that kind of like lack of safety awareness. But actually, the most fun thing you can do, like none of you guys probably would have done that, but you can just like one hand, one leg, and then the rest just flailing outside. No one is gonna stop you.
Yeah,
And
try doing that in the UK.
exactly, it's so fun. And then then they showed that little bit of someone, you know, as Chris said, people running for the train, and there's little businesses that are operating like purely because of the railways there, and you can see that. And then there's also what's it called? People using the train tracks to walk either to work or to family. I think it's to work. So it's like a family full on using the tracks as a walkway to get somewhere. And that's obviously a very common thing that that happens. Because I work on, as I mentioned before, I work on railways. The other interesting thing what I saw was that there was this railway worker there. I don't know if you guys saw this old man with like half like rural clothes, like a dhoti or something, and then he also had like a semi PPE high visibility vest thing going on, like I don't know if it was self-manufactured, but it's like slightly bright orange, and then he's got that hammer, which railway maintenance track maintenance people carry to like hammer in pan-roll clips that hold the sleeper and the track together. So it's quite cool, a little bit of play there by the directors, showing all of that in the first 10 seconds, because there's a lot there and it really immerses you again. They've done that really well.
And Mike, what's your take on the opening few seconds?
I think it's a really good way to move from one scene to the next, or to move ahead in time or something. They also show that trains are such a big part of Indian culture. I think these days maybe not as much as they used to be, because now the long distance journeys, people might fly rather than taking the train. But especially in Guruji's days, his dad worked for the railroads, and whenever, like when he tried to escape to the Himalayas, he would be on a train and then on the next train, right? And then his brother catches him somewhere in a carriage or something like that. So it is such a, like Priyank said, it's a bit like a way to immerse, to show we're in India. This is kind of how India works, and the scene where people hang out the door, it's great. But it's a bit like also what you expect. Like everybody has seen those pictures of India, right, where people are on top of the train or hanging from the side of a packed train or something. Not for fun, but because there's no space left inside the train, right? So you're just hanging on the side of it. It's funny. It's like I remember when I went to India in like 2006, I took a train once from Delhi to Kolkata, and because people told me that's the way to go. So I was like, okay, so how long does it take? And they were like 17 hours. So I was like, what? 17 hours on a train? But it's I think we booked like second class air conditioned, so it was quite comfortable. They brought us food all the time, and we were like a group of 5 friends, so we had a good time. But it's just, and the funny thing is, a lot of times this train doesn't go very fast. Sometimes you think like, I could walk next to this train. I could like get out, pick some flowers, jump back on the train or something like that.
Yeah, it's certainly not Japanese.
It's not a bullet train.
Bullet train,
Yeah, but also you see so much of the landscape. You look outside, and on one side you see the mountains, the foothills, and you see fields, and I feel like it's really good. It's very Indian the way they put this in there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful scene, and it has like a guitar riff. Is that does anybody recognize the instrument being played there? It's maybe a sitar again, I guess, but it's a really cool way to open up the minute. And whenever I see trains, I have to say, like, maybe I have some kind of affiliation with it myself. Like I met my fiance on a train, and we always, tell the story about how we met on train, and it's maybe romantic and everything. But I was reading The Second Coming of Christ this morning, And there was discussion on Satan and how the satanic force really was the creator of reincarnation, and how then God's initial plans, this is Yogananda talking, God's initial plans was really how we were meant to live in pure kind of bliss and peaceful harmony. You know, there wasn't meant to be all this pain and suffering going on and chaos in the world. And it talked there a little bit about how we were literally not meant to feel pain and meant to be the observer and being able to see our body if there was any suffering going on as like what we would say a third person, be detached from it. And there was a line in there that talked about the journey, kind of getting on and getting off at the beginning and the end. And it does make me think of the metaphorical kind of train. You kind of get on the train, you get off the train. And it kind of made me think like, oh, that's maybe what life's journey should be like. You should just get on the train, like enjoy the beautiful scenery, as you said, Mike, and just get off and maybe go on another journey, as God had planned. But so often we really suffer along the way of this journey, and it just does make me think of journeys and life and how we not to kind of read into it too much, but the significance of trains is maybe speaks more to me than it's meant or intended, miss. But we'll move on, shall we? Because Brother Vishwananda makes an appearance, and this is his second appearance in the film so far, and his feet are shown, and his blessed feet, I believe, Priyanka, as you put it, are shown. And I thought it was very nice what he said, which was every soul is on a journey. People are at different levels of that journey. And then you have the scenes of the flashing things of people hanging off the trains, as we mentioned. So he continues to say, I think we all believe that there's more to life than what we experience every day. Mike, what's your take on Brother Vishwananda's statements there?
Yeah, I mean, he got introduced like I think 1 or 2 minutes ago already in the scene. So they put him this time. They put him on the train and they show him he's sitting there with Brahmachari Shekhar and he's meditating on the train, which is, I find, a great scene. I like it because I feel like those trains, they're not really the most peaceful place in the world. And when you sit there and you can meditate, it's pretty great. And then his quote, it's I mean, I feel like there's two different parts that like every soul is on a journey and people are at different levels in that journey. That makes a lot of sense in the sense of that everybody at the end is looking for God, and there might be a different path to God, but at the end we all go to the same place. Some people might be closer, or some people might be taking this route, and some people might be taking this route, and that kind of makes us all brothers in the same quest, kind of. And the second part, that there is more to life than that we believe that there's more to life than the everyday experience. That is a very powerful thought, because almost I don't think anybody can really deny that. When you live like a normal material life and you think about what is the purpose of my life, and you don't know, you go like, why don't I know? I mean, I have a job, I have family, blah, 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 and you still think, what is the purpose of my life? Then everybody has this kind of thing in them where they go like, there must be something more. So it's an intriguing question he asked there.
Priyanka.
Yeah, I think the cinematography and the scene selection fit very well with what he was about to say, the journey that we're talking about, and the chaotic nature of the journey that they portray in terms of the Indian life, the Indian culture is symbolic of our chaotic journey, isn't it? And so I thought it was quite a nice segue. That we discussed that in detail, and we didn't plan that, but it was quite a nice segue into this bit that Brother Vishwananda says. He obviously he served in the Indian ashrams for 18 years or something along those lines. So no doubt he would have probably learnt Hindi or a lot of or one of the other local languages. So it would not that all that chaos that's happening isn't new to him. He's very much probably part of it, even though he serves now at Mother Center in Los Angeles. But yeah, I thought it was really good. And the opening shot of the photo or the scene where his feet are recorded is poignant, because in our traditions and culture, that is the element of the most important element, also most. It's a very unique way in terms of cultures around the world to portray your devotion and your surrender to someone, because it's quite demeaning in the West, isn't it? If you ask someone to do something for your feet, it's felt like it's demeaning. But in India, that is not the case in any way. And in fact, it's actually seen as a sign of piety. So, for example, when Krishna was born in Mathura, in North India near Delhi, and he spent his childhood in Vrindavan, which is nearby. And I went there 10 years ago, and then I had a lovely time. It's a place of pilgrimage for many people around the world. But then I read in a scripture somewhere, his Uddhava, his cousin, when he was entering Krishna's abode in Mathura or Vrindavan, before he stepped into the village, he not only did he think of Krishna's feet, he thought, oh, Krishna has graced this dirt on this ground by his presence, and this is God. So before I even think to enter, let me pay respect to this dirt that's touched the feet of Krishna. So before he entered that vicinity, he actually bowed down, prostrated completely, and took the dirt and applied it to his forehead, and his neck as well. So that's symbolic in Indian culture of surrender and devotion to God and gurus. And we tend to apply that relationship to our parents in India. So we take the dust. The term is to take the dust off the feet of someone who is dear to you or that you respect. So it's very poignant and powerful that they chose that scene, because Brother Vishwananda is obviously a brother. He's a minister, so we naturally respect him. And in Indian tradition, that form of respect is shown by taking the dust off the feet of a saint or a holy person such as Krishna, etc. So I thought it was very nice, that touch. And he talked so beautifully. I don't know if they rehearsed that, but for example, he talked two very simple lines, but so beautifully articulated, not just articulated, but the diction that he had and the feeling that he said them with. For example, the last part of the quote, which is, I think we believe that there's more to life than what we experience every day. And what we experience every day is switched to like this white background, and he's just in a white room, completely devoid of the previous scene. And he kind of tilts his head and he says, experience every day. And it's such a small thing that he didn't think about probably in any way, but it's so beautiful to just see that and to connect. It allows you to connect with what he's saying so nicely. So if you can go back and just watch how he says those lines and expresses them. So he's not just reading a script, he's speaking from the heart, and it shows through his his demeanor, the way he's delivered that message, and through his facial expressions, one of sympathy, etc.
Yeah, when I watched, I could see the twinkle in his eye, and that it was that the real spiritual kind of glint of amusement, in his eye when he said it. I thought it was great. And then we had the two of them sitting together and going about their business, I suppose, on the journey. It was quite a nice shot of the two of them. I think they were both reading, or at least had material in their hands. And is it Brother Shekhar or
Brahmachari Shekhar at the time? Yes.
Yes, and now Priyank, you're going to have to help me with the pronunciation.
Now he's Brother Kamalananda.
Kamalananda, thank you.
Yes.
And Brother Kamalananda, now he was maybe multitasking. You know, he had his left hand with the phone to his ear, and the right hand, it looks like he was holding the autobiography of a yogi, because you see Guruji's face and his eyes looking up at you in the shot, just watching you. I thought this was quite a cool scene, because it's like the modern day monk, isn't it? On the phone, maybe doing business, a business call, a personal call, and it made me think, like, what do you guys? I was keen to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think it's becoming harder to be a renunciate in this day and age, where information is so readily available, with this world of Maya is essentially distracting us from our true nature, from God, and mobile phones these days it's glued to most people's hips or hands, and obviously it's probably not being used in that way in this case. But I just thought I'm going to ask the guys what they think. So what do you think? Is it going to be harder to be a monk these days than what it used to be?
I'm not sure. I don't think it is. I feel like if you think about what renunciant really means, I don't think it means you renounce a phone, or you renounce every technology that there is, right? What you renounce is you're living your life for your pleasure. You basically want to become a 100% faithful disciple of your guru and give your life to him. And I feel like Guruji will tell you to organize a meeting. Guruji will tell you to meet other devotees. Guruji will tell you to travel. And those kind of things, they are, those little gadgets, they make those kind of things easier. They make it like you can sit on the train and answer emails that devotees have sent you, for example. And you can sit there and I don't know, maybe I'm not sure if somebody does that for you, but maybe you can sit there and already book the next flight for the next place. I don't know. I feel like it makes you more efficient if you primarily use it in the way that a monk is using it. I don't really see a contradiction there. Of course, the distractions are much more numerous than they used to be, and everything is becoming more complex, because with this new efficiency that you have, you are able to interact with devotees all over the world all the time, right? And you become also very available, right? And then I can see some of the monks, they must be having full inboxes from people who keep writing them. And right now we're in this COVID pandemic still, and I can imagine even more people are writing them right now. So I'm not sure if it's harder, but maybe in a time like this, it could be, I can imagine it to be a lot more stressful than, like, I can imagine in the old days, you are in your ashram and you have some visitors and you accommodate them. Everything was a bit simpler, I guess. Now everything is becoming more complex.
Yeah, this is along my line of thinking. I actually thought, well, has it become easier? In a sense, arguably, could you say that we've got access to information now more than we've ever been able to have? So, Guruji's teachings, and I just think back to times when, before Jesus Christ, and around those times, how can you get a message out to people? Well, you can't really. It's just modern day technology has not made it easier. And the three of us, just to your point, Mike, I think this is exactly it. We're communicating with technology, and we're talking about spirituality. And so Yogananda talks about having material and spiritual wealth. And I think the two go hand in hand, which is why I actually thought the analogy of he's got one hand with technology in the other hand with with the book. And I just thought that's such a cool thing, because I think the two go hand in hand, and we're going to have to learn, whilst we've got immense material wealth in the West, and the East is catching up to that wealth. We have to balance with spirituality. I just thought that observation is really critical, because we have to really learn to balance the two. Priyank, your thoughts?
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed. I'll just relate a story. A few years ago, I was going on a pilgrimage to a place called Kailash, which is in Tibet, and my father-in-law said, "Oh, how are you gonna?" He said, "You can't live without your phone," and I said, "Yes, I can." And he said, "No, the modern youth is glued to their phone," and I was like, "Yeah, that's because we do a lot of, not only do our social interactions rely on the phone quite heavily, but also we do most of our businesses with technology. For example, I serve in young adult Sangha, where with volunteers around the world, we're doing this podcast with three different countries across oceans, basically. And when people are joining us from other parts of the world, like we had Carolina from Brazil, etc. So it's obviously aiding us as well. So I remember when I went to that pilgrimage, I shaved off my head and I didn't take my phone, and I had no intention of looking at technology for those 2 or 3 weeks that I was going on the pilgrimage for. And people talk about phone anxiety or no phone anxiety. I don't know what it's called, but if you are fixed in your sadhana, like you don't meditate with a phone, do you? You don't, unless you're doing an online meditation. But
Yeah.
but you don't need a phone to meditate or to derive the joy from a meditation, or the feeling of peace or samadhi, if that's in your experience. And it was easy. There was absolutely no need for my phone. If I wanted to, if I felt like I needed to talk to someone, rather than speaking to Mike or Chris, I'd speak to the other person that's on the bus with me. And you don't need technology for that. So it was quite easy for me. And you mentioned the material prosperity of the West versus the East, and I thought I'd share this lovely story by Brother Anandamoy. He was telling us in his talk about loyalty. I think it was that one. Loyalty, the highest spiritual law. It's a beautiful talk. I'd highly recommend it. If he was saying he was looking for this picture of Krishna, like he had it in his mind, he'd seen it somewhere on the bus or something, and so he was in India and he was looking for this picture, and he went to all these shops and he couldn't find the one that he had in his mind. And then he in the place he was staying, he went to the kitchen or the servants' quarters, and the lady there had a small worn picture of the one that he was talking about. And he's like, "That's the one, that's what I wanted." And she was in the room. Obviously he wasn't speaking to her, but she saw that he had some connection with that picture, and she just literally took it down and said, "Here, take this picture." And Brother Nandamoy was like, no, I can't take this, this is your thing. And she said, no, you take it. This is actually a service for me, to give it to you. And he talked about renunciation in that, and spirituality, like in how quickly she was able to renounce. So she would, the servants in India and maids, etc., are usually extremely poor, and they don't have many possessions. So pictures are actually, especially pictures of God, they actually purchase, and they wouldn't have many of. And so how quickly she just literally gave one of her possessions. And we talk about wealth, but how easy is it for someone who doesn't even have much to renounce that wealth and look at that spiritual prowess that she has compared to us, where we struggle if we don't have our phone, let alone a picture like this.
Yeah, I was reading a prayer this morning that said, I care not for what I may permanently possess, but give me the power to acquire at will what I may need in my daily life. And I thought that's super powerful, isn't it? Because surrendering and to say to God, God has everything, and as a child, therefore we have everything that we need and more. So yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing. So in this picture, when we see the two monks sitting, there's some text overlay, and it says, "On a pilgrimage in India." So when I read this, pilgrimage, it's such a provocative word for me, pilgrimage. And I know, Priyank, you've certainly done a pilgrimage, maybe one or two in your life. Mike, maybe you can share with us if you've done any yourself, when and where. But yeah, for me, when I hear or see this word, I immediately see or picture in my mind's eye like people in shrouds, walking up or hiking a mountain with their hoods up and big walking sticks or something like this. And it's very ancient kind of practice. But maybe you can share with us, Priyank, some of the pilgrimages you've done, and maybe even what a pilgrimage is, first and foremost.
Yeah, so the conventional definition of a pilgrimage is that you're traveling or journeying to a place, or a spiritual place, or a place of some spiritual significance. But it's obviously much deeper than that. So part of the process for the pilgrimages that I've been on lays emphasis not on the outward or the physical journey, but the journey of letting go and transforming yourself. So that is the emphasis of the pilgrimage, and that's the true meaning of it, because you can use anything you can use to transform your life, any tool you can use, right, to transform your life. But a pilgrimage, especially the ones which are renowned, like the one I went to in Kailash. I'll give you some crude example. For example, you might have a very big appetite for food, which a lot of us do, and you don't think anything of it. But when you go on a pilgrimage to Kailash, say, or any high altitude place, so Kailash is the foothills of Kailash is where you walk to, is 5,000 meters or 15,000 feet. So at that level, obviously the air, the oxygen levels and the pressure mean that it really plays with your system. So you get a lot of altitude sickness. A lot of people get altitude sickness, like I did, and your appetite goes down. So whether you like it or not, even if you have all the best facilities, if you were traveling in a chariot of a king, the king will experience the same as the beggar that has nothing, and you'll have to deal with that. And that is the pilgrimage, dealing with that difficulty, that harshness, and if you don't deal with it, you won't survive. You'll just turn around. So to make it to the point of the pilgrimage, you have to transform yourself, and that is the journey, and that's the process that you're undertaking, and it forces you to do it. So I lost a lot of weight, for example. I didn't eat much. I got a lot of travel sickness, but I didn't want to take the medication. But it was such a beautiful experience, because then when you're there, when you make it there, you've let so much of your clutter, you've left it behind, along the path, and you just open. At that point, you're just so much more open to a process or being in that physical location than you ever would have been if you not have made the pilgrimage. So, for example, the Tibetans take that to an extreme level. So when they go to Kailash, like we were just walking in our superb facility, we had like a bus, etc., and then we took it virtually to the last spot, and we had to walk 2 or 3 days to the last point. But the pilgrims in Tibet, and also the people from India that would travel, can you imagine, thousands of miles? This is not just a 2 or 3 day hike. This is thousands of miles that they would be traveling to, and it would be such a big journey for them that they would actually say goodbyes to their family, because a lot of them wouldn't make it back. So Tibetans, even right now, if you go to these places, the Tibetan Buddhists, they don't just walk every single step is a full salutation. So with every step they take, they go down on their knees and completely lie down and bow down to that step that they've taken, and then they get up and they take the next step. Can you imagine walking, hundreds, or however many miles that they've come, and every single step, that is what they're doing? So it is, can you imagine the transformation? And these aren't very, you can tell they're not very rich. They're not rich people. These are materially they're very poor, but can you imagine the willpower, the devotion, the state of spiritual being?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I really hope to experience someday, to do a pilgrimage. And I think as soon as I read the autobiography of a yogi, I was looking at the places that I'm going to try to get to at some point. But Mike, I think you've got some experiences with pilgrimages.
Yeah, but not really in the way that Priyank just mentioned. I feel like a lot of those pilgrimage places in Europe, there's a few. There's one in Austria where I'm from. There's Mariazell, and they have like a picture of the Virgin Mary that's like 1,000 years old, and miracles happen when you go there. But then these days you drive there, right? And yeah. The one that a lot of people still do on foot is the Camino de Santiago. That's very famous in Europe. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it, but it's basically, there's a route from anywhere in Europe. A lot of people do it from England or from Italy, France, or even from Eastern Europe, because it's the end point is Spain. So you basically walk, and at the last portion, like in northern Spain, there's actually there's a path where you can walk, and there is I would say that the distance that you would walk in a day, there is a bed and breakfast or something similar where people stay, and in a not during the pandemic, but usually you would find quite a lot of people there that went on this journey. A lot of people do this to find themselves or something like this. Not all of them are super spiritual, but it's the closest that I can think of in Europe of what Priyank was describing of what a pilgrimage is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It sounds like people do it for different reasons. And it's like the first or maybe even the last sort of step on many people's spiritual journey on earth. Very cool. So we have this scene then with the monks and Brother Vishwananda actually saying, going into the second part of that statement that I made earlier, that people believe that there's more to life than the everyday experiences, and we have a lovely scene here with young Yogananda sitting amongst the trees and meditating, and he's looking very peaceful, isn't he? He's eyes closed in lotus posture, with the beads on. And for years I never really knew what the beads were actually for when I saw people with beads. And of course now maybe I know a little bit more about it, and it's to do with you're wearing some. Go ahead.
Yes, I am. Yes, so I'm wearing Rudraksh. So you can research Rudraksh. There's a big science about what materials you have that are touching your skin and what impact they have on your body and your environment, etc. And obviously in SRF we also wear, well, a lot of people wear astrological bangles, such as the one that I'm wearing, which has gold, silver, and copper. So it's along the line. So I really liked this picture of young Mukunda, because he was wearing his tulsi beads. So tulsi is a very sacred plant in India that's associated with divinity, and so that he's wearing some tulsi beads, I believe, and he's wearing a very simple dhoti outfit. So it's very beautiful. I really loved the detail that they put on, the props that they put on these kind of shots, because the not only is his, the actor that plays this child that's playing this role is just so beautiful, isn't he? So he plays it so elegantly, and he's somehow managed to portray like a very powerful gaze even at such a young age. But the props that they've apparelled him with are really very nice.
Pretty cool. And then of course we've got I think it's the first showing of Mr. Deepak Chopra, which is very, very cool to see him in the film. And it really, Deepak, it says author, holistic healer, health pioneer. And pioneer is I suppose the word in many respects there. And going to your point earlier, Priyank, about you don't normally meditate with your phone. Do you know, I've got a confession that the guy actually initially started meditating with my phone. And it was through an app called, I think it's called Timer app, if I remember. And Deepak is on this app, along with probably hundreds of other practitioners, meditators, yoga instructors, and things, and talks through mantras and healing techniques and things like this. So that was my very first experience in Deepak. I've got a soft spot for Deepak because of that. So when I hear his voice, it takes me back to those times, 2016, when really I started on my journey. And yeah, for those who don't know, Deepak Chopra, a quick introduction. He is a licensed physician, and in 1980 became a chief of staff to the New England Memorial Hospital, NEMH. So in 1985, he met Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and became involved in the transcendental meditation movement. So yeah, shortly after that, I think it was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi asked him to set up a Ayurvedic practice, and he did so. And yeah, he left the NEMH to do that. And there's an interesting part when I was did a quick search on this. It was Deepak who said that he left because he started to feel like a legalized drug pusher. And in his opinion, 80% of the drugs he was prescribing to people were quite useless and didn't really have much of an impact on them, or had a marginal benefit. And I just thought that was quite an interesting thing. And again, made me think of the East and West integration. Somebody who was a medical doctor and a practitioner, prescribing drugs in the way that in the US they would prescribe. And I think we've probably all seen documentaries and on the practices of the United States and how they're kind of drug crazy in the pharmaceutical industry over there. So I really empathized when I heard this and thought, good on him for really taking up the challenge and going on to be a success as he is now. So yeah, he's here, and he talks about Yogananda, and he says Yogananda happens to be what I would call a spiritual prodigy, a spiritual genius, which would mean having access to a domain of awareness that most people don't have access to, like a mathematical genius, or like mathematical geniuses. He explored a much larger territory in the spiritual domain. So this is Deepak coming in and giving his definitions of Yogananda, which I suppose differ to the definitions that we're accustomed to some degree, right? But Mike, what's your take on Deepak? Are you happy to see him in the film?
Oh yeah, I'm happy to see him in the film. I would say describing Yogananda as a prodigy is a bit of an understatement. But I guess you need to use the vocabulary that you're familiar with, and I think his intention was to praise him, and I think he also when I started hearing about Deepak Chopra ages ago, I think he was like based in New York, and I think he moved to California now, and he actually has like a Chopra center now somewhere near Encinitas, California. So, and he does really interesting things. He has the right instincts when it comes to medicine, right? Because as you said, his background is being a physician, and so he knows that it's good for some things, but he also knows the limitations, and he's interested to work on those crossroads of spirituality and medicine. And I feel like the stuff he says, like I read one Medium article about him where he talks about the biofields phenomenon, which is basically where he says that every body emits an electric field, and we can measure that with our devices. So we are aware of that. But he also says that this biofield keeps changing. He says our mood changes the biofield. And he says he created, or he works with companies and universities and stuff. And they created a device that can actually detect your mood and upload it directly into an app, into a cloud computer. And so he can have people wear those devices and then see what mood they're in, for example. Mm-hmm. And he says you can use that to diagnose people, and then you can, he does experiments like where he plays music and then he sees how their biofield changes, and he sees the future of medicine in what he calls, or the field is called energy healing. And I think this sounds very promising. This is probably crossroads of modern medicine with like maybe some Vedic old knowledge, and I feel like there's probably a lot of promise to this. And so I think he's like I like his work. I find it exciting.
Pretty cool. Priyank.
I liked the last point you said, Mike, about the energy, because energy healing, because when you were talking about us generating an electric field, we may call it an aura as well, I suppose. If you could probably do the inverse, as you kind of alluded to in the healing. So, for example, if we know the field and the patterns that are associated with bliss or love and joy, and we generated that artificially in a room at high power, and we walked into that space and meditated there, surely we would be much more receptive to that, because then not only, well, our field would interact with that field.
There are all sorts of devices like that with limited effectiveness. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like how Deepak Chopra is wearing. He looks like such a cool East-West scientist, doesn't he? Mm. He's wearing this like black overcoat that's like kind of a hybrid. It feels like something that I wore at my wedding, for example, but the white version, but also that's perfectly permissible in a business, executive meeting, etc. And he's got a very nice murti, or a statue, in the background. I think it's either Krishna playing the flute, or the dancing Nataraja Shiva form, but it's very cool. The purple background, it looks fantastic, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there's like mystical music playing in the background, and it looks like water, some kind of liquid form, which takes you from seeing Deepak to seeing young Mukunda, young Yogananda, walking down the steps, which ends the minute there. So it's quite well done, isn't it? And this minute, and does take you from the initial journey through from the train scene, and really takes you on a little mini pilgrimage to the end here to set you up for the next minute. So yeah, any reflections then on this minute from either yourselves, Mike and Priyank?
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that when they bring someone like Deepak Chopra in, it just shows how Yogananda is at the root of so many different things. He comes to the West, he teaches yoga, which is like this vast, different way to look at life and everything, and so many things they got created from it, or he helped create so many. And there's so many people in so many different fields that feel like if it weren't for Yogananda, they wouldn't be where they are. And they got inspired by him. So it shows the impact that he had in his life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just spurs the thought. I didn't actually mention that when we talked about like genius, you know, Deepak said that Yogananda was a spiritual genius. I kind of thought to myself, well, what does that mean? Like, what does he mean by that? And I did a couple of Google searches, and I came across, actually, sorry, no, it was on the second coming of Christ. I was reading the autobiography of a yogi, where I was looking up, where does it mention genius there? And it does mention it in the autobiography of a yogi on the footnote. I think it's on chapter 7, page 41. You can find it, where it talks about the French professors were the first in the West to be able to scientifically investigate the possibilities of superconsciousness, the superconsciousness mind. So Professor Jules Bois, a member of the L'École des Psychologie of the Sorbonne. So he lectured in America in 1928, and he recognized the superconscious mind there, which runs contradictory to Freud's subconscious mind, and is the faculty in which man really, which differentiates man from the animal, and doesn't categorize man as a super animal. So I thought that was quite an interesting point there to make, but goes on to say that Jules Bois explained that the awakening of the higher consciousness was not to be confused with Qigong or hypnotism, but existence of a superconscious mind has long been recognized philosophically, being in reality the oversoul spoken of by Emerson, but only recently has it been recognized significantly. So the French scientists pointed out that from the superconsciousness comes inspiration, genius, moral values, and belief in this is not mysticism, though it recognized the value and valued the qualities which mystics preached. So I just thought this idea that genius comes through connection really to the superconscious mind. And to me, that's where the greats, you know, whether it be in mathematics, as Deepak mentioned, or in spirituality, or whatever it might be, they tap into the superconscious field where thoughts, let's say, exist, and they can draw upon that in that sense. So I thought that was quite a cool snippet to throw in. I forgot, but any more, Priyank?
A couple of things. So yeah, really nice. I really like the footnotes in the autobiography. Sometimes you've got through a long chapter, and then the footnote is sometimes longer than the whole page, and you're like, oh gosh, this is going to take me ages. But then you read it, and you're like, wow, there's so much great stuff there. And also, it's not just Yogananda's writings. Obviously, if you read very recent version of the autobiography that's released by Self-Realization Fellowship, then you'll see that, you know, latest scientific developments that back up or further emphasize something that Yogananda was saying, as Chris just alluded to, will also be added in there. So it's really interesting, especially for a scientific mind such as the one that I have been trained to possess. A couple of things I wanted to talk about quickly. So we talk about Brahmachari Shekhar, who became Brother Kamalananda. Kamalananda means lotus, or like a red color. So it's a very nice name, Kamal. So Kamala is the lotus, and Ananda. All monks in SRF have a name and then Ananda. So I think that's in connection with Yogananda, perhaps. But yeah, that's really nice. So I just wanted to ask the question, actually, if perhaps one of you guys know, or one of the listeners can tell me, when does a postulant become a brahmachari? And when does a brahmachari become a brother? Does anyone know about the demarcations and what the vows or whatever you have to take, or states of consciousness that you have to attain before you move from one to the other?
I'm not sure if there's not even a step in between still. I think postulant is only the first year or two, and then you become a novice, I think.
Oh, yes.
And I think it's when you wear blue, and
Mm.
then you go. But I'm not really sure what ceremonies are involved from moving from one to the next.
So listener, unless Chris knows,
Yes.
listener, please do message us. That would be interesting information for us. One other thing before we go, we've had feedback, some good feedback that I wanted to just cover. So on our social media channels, awake.minute on Facebook and Instagram, we tend to release snippets of media that are relevant for the minute. So a couple of minutes ago, we obviously talked about the lovely Lahiri Mahashaya, and someone wrote this comment: "Oh, the autobiography of a yogi, the most amazing book that a child can read, and has changed lives of millions. Please read it today. It is more relevant today than ever before." That's someone just off the cuff comment. Someone else responds saying, well, we won't do names because it's a bit personal, I suppose. Have already gone through, but in my case, I developed anxiety. Anxiety for not able to see or meet Babaji. Anxiety for not able to control my thoughts. Instead of let go of thoughts, and I'm getting carried away with it. So let's that's an interesting little discussion there. Let's discuss that. Michael, Chris, actually you start. What would you say to person B?
Yeah, I person B, I mean, I would, anxiety is a funny one, isn't it? Like, if you think of, we kind of throw these words around, but what do we really mean by it? And I think anxiety is undue expectation and judgment, really. That's if you look at the root causes of what essentially would be high blood pressure and nervousness, and Yogananda talks really about how to go about relieving yourself of anxiety. So to the person who made the comment, the information's in there in Yogananda's teachings really to how to alleviate it. But I would definitely say that anxiety, unfortunately, is universal. I think everybody's probably experienced anxiety from one topic to another. But for me, it's it's something that I can share something with you that I remember asking a question to someone that, how do I know if Yogananda is my guru? And I'd been doing the teachings and started the lessons and really went down that road, but maybe felt as this person has felt that they have anxiety to an extent for not being able to meet Babaji or control their thoughts in that sense. So the answer was, well, you already are with them. You're already, you're with them and they're with you through the teachings. So it connected me to the teachings, and Babaji's teachings are really coming through the SRF. So Babaji is already with you of sorts. So fear not, have no anxiety, because he is already with you.
Mike?
Very beautiful. Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like having anxiety is already comes from the right desire to see Babaji. I mean, when you don't see Babaji right away and you feel anxiety because of that, I guess it's like Chris said, it's like this expectation that you want God and he's just right there. It's like there's a bit of struggle involved, I guess. But it's beautiful to see that there's people out there who have this desire for Babaji. I don't think anxiety should be something that pushes you away from it, but maybe as a response, maybe we should do something to come closer to Babaji, try to get past that anxiety.
Yeah, or use it. Yeah, I think some of the moments where I've had my greatest breakthroughs have been through the greatest struggle, and to use that struggle because it's energy of sorts, isn't it? We feel the stress and strain of life, and to simply direct that into whatever it is that you want to manifest. And and to surrender and let go, as the listener has quite rightly put, instead of letting go of the thoughts, getting carried away with them. Easier said than done, but then if you can't let go, then wield that energy and wield that anxiety for use for your own purposes.
I'll offer two takes from what you guys have just said, one supporting and one against. So the supporting one, I'll just start with that. So Yogananda says, quotes, I quote, the difference between you and Yogananda is that I made the effort. So that's Yogananda saying it. So we read about his yearning in the autobiography of how much he wanted these, to be close to God, or for God to come into his life, and he didn't give up, did he? He'd meditate the whole night, and he wouldn't get up. And we remember that scene where he was meditating in the sun, at one stage in the temple, the Kali temple in Dakshineshwar. And so his resolution is great. He may or may not have had anxiety, but his resolution was the distinguishing factor. So that's the supporting arguments. I'll offer the against now. So we also taught that we should not focus on the fruits of the action that we're undertaking, because when we're focusing on the fruits, then the action and the activity becomes binding. So the cause of an anxiety in this sense could be that I want this out of my meditation or my life, and I'm not getting it, and hence anxiety comes into your life. But the way we're actually told to meditate is, yes, to have that yearning and that desire, but not the desire and the yearning for the fruit, but actually to just offer yourself as a devotion, as a practice, without any emphasis on what peace will come out of it, what joy comes out of it, what ecstasy comes out of it. All those things may come, or they may not come, and that's dependent on A, our practice, and B, the karma that we have, right now. So I think if we place our emphasis on that, offering ourselves for the sake of that offering to transform ourselves, as opposed to for the fruit, then there can be no anxiety if we can switch to that train of thought.
Yeah, I 100% agree, Greg. Those 2 points are great. And to what Yogananda talks about as well is to think of the emotions as like a chemical lab. You want to be mixing emotions, and you can come up with really potent and powerful energies if you mix certain emotions, and really to focus on the opposite. If you're feeling sadness, focus on happiness. And if you're feeling unrest, focus on peace, and don't have the consciousness, like you said there, Greg, of the negative vibration. So what's the opposite of anxiety? It'll be peace, joy, love. Just purely focus on that. And
and there's also no reason for anxiety, because if you get some perspective, we've done thousands, maybe millions of incarnations, and very few of them we focused on God, right? And now we kind of feel like, okay, we feel like we want to get out of this cycle, we want God, and now we feel anxiety. I mean, we kind of need to see that this is just a step-by-step process, and we, like Brian said earlier, Guruji has made the effort. There's this saying that a saint is a sinner that never gave up, right? So you just have to keep at it, and then you, even though you're not doing it for the fruits, you're doing it for God. But in the end, God is what you want. So in the end, He will reach your goal, hopefully.
Very nice. Yeah. I've got a second bit of feedback. This is more of just a sharing, an outpouring, I suppose. And this is comment from the picture of Lahiri Mahasaya. And this is, Mike and I were discussing this before this meeting, where, you know, we posted a picture of all of the lineage of our gurus from, you know, Paramahansa Yogananda, Sri Yukteswar, Lahiri Mahasaya, Mahatar Babaji, Krishna and Jesus. So I put them all on at the same time, and we wanted to see how many likes each one would get. And interestingly, Babaji came first, and Lahiri Mahasaya came second, and they had the most comments as well. So that's an interesting take. But in the case of Lahiri Mahasaya, it generated quite a lot of comments. And I think we've discussed Lahiri Mahasaya in detail, so we won't go into that. But this comment was quite beautiful. This person has said, he is true helper. My father was on the operation table for the operation of a brain due to brain hemorrhage. Doctors was earlier reluctant for his brain surgery, as it is thought that is tough and may result in a resultant paralysis of a body part. So I told my mother that I'm going to Delhi Kendra. So Kendra in India is a center. So Delhi center, SRF center, for better operation of my father. And then he says, I strongly prayed to Lahiri Mahasaya for the good operation of my father. When I reached back to hospital after prayer, doctor was returning from operation theater and told me that he is seeing positive sign, perhaps operation is not required. Therefore, we can hold off the operation. And since then, my father has become okay without an operation. Jai Lahiri Mahasaya, which means victory to Lahiri Mahasaya. And I think he even said before this, he used to keep a picture of Lahiri Mahasaya under his pillow. So we hear these stories of the miraculous healings of, you know, from Lahiri Mahasaya in the autobiography. Do we use Lahiri Mahasaya's picture in this way? And either of you done anything like that?
I had the SRF gurus and saints behind water, and I was told by one of the SRF members that it would help, you know, maybe even purify the water, you know, just by simply having the gaze or the pictures there. So I actually did that for a while, to be honest, but that's the height of it, really, apart from my mantelpiece that I have them up on.
Nice. Not really. I do have the classic, I have a guru picture in the car, protect me while I'm in the car. And I have a Yogananda picture in all of my rooms. But I must say I'm very focused on Yogananda when it comes to my pictures. I have an altar in my meditation area, but don't have too many pictures of the other gurus, to be honest.
Very interesting. The other, you know, someone was telling me that I was complaining early on in my practices. I'm not sure if Yogananda has accepted me as his disciple yet. I'm not sure if I'm getting that feeling. And this person, she told me that, it doesn't have to be Yogananda. It can be anyone in the lineage. And you know, some people resonate with Lahiri Mahasaya, and you know, and nothing that Yogananda writes or teaches or is in the lessons is contradictory to anything that Lahiri Mahasaya would say, and vice versa. So it's not necessary that your personal relationship be strongest with Yogananda or any of those. It can be to any one of them, and that's absolutely fine, isn't it? But I really like that story because this person that has said on Facebook about his dear father, because we're taught about the miraculous healing capability of just the mere thought of Lahiri Mahasaya. And Mahatar Babaji says, or there's a section that said, even someone who mentions Mahatar Babaji gets an instant blessing. And I really love that. And I really don't, personally, I don't take advantage of such blessings enough. So when I'm praying for healing, we know so many stories of the divine healing capabilities of Lahiri Mahasaya, as we said, and it's so easy for us to be able to connect and draw from that. But I need to do that more. I'd love to do it as this person has done. What a beautiful story.
Mhm. You know, I moved from from London to Northern Ireland fairly recently, and I had 4 large boxes, 1 meter by 1 meter, sort of 1 cubic meter in size, and 2 of them got lost. And in it was, you know, my pictures of masters and everything on rips, so I had to go buy them again, and yeah, I had to find them again because they sort of disappeared from my life. And initially I was like, no, is this a sign? Have I not been meditating enough? So yeah, I'm quite attached to the pictures and not seeing their faces. But healing power. So that's it for the 9th minute. If anybody else has any other information that they want to add in or share, I think we're good. So next minute we can look forward to talking about true spirit and consciousness and distant lives and visions, mystics with special knowledge and the atomic age. So plenty to talk about in the next minute. So hopefully you'll tune in then. Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.